Hello there. Many of you will already be familiar with Watchtower's Caleb and Sophia cartoon series, in which millions of Jehovah's Witness children have already been told that Jehovah hates certain kinds of plastic action figures.
Who likes magic? Jehovah or Satan?
Satan.
Right. Magic is bad. That's why Jehovah hates it. Do you really want to play with something that Jehovah hates?
They've also been told to give their ice cream money as donations to Watchtower. And who could forget the grim warning that failing to pay attention at Jehovah's Witness meetings could cost you your life.
He paid attention, and it saved his life. Paying attention at the meetings can help save your life.
At Genesis 6:22, we read,
Previously, none of these grotesque child propaganda cartoons have instructed kids on how to be small-minded, bigoted, judgmental homophobes with classmates who happen to have gay or lesbian parents. But all that has now changed. Brace yourselves for a hideous new cartoon titled Lesson 22, One Man, One Woman. Yes, Sophia has just had the traumatic experience of seeing a family sketch that doesn't exactly mirror that of her own. Instead of having a mummy and a daddy, her friend Kari has a mummy and a mummy. Troubled by her discovery that not all families are the same, Sophia later approaches her mother.
Look, Mom. I drew our family in school today.
Oh, wow!
I didn't have time to finish Caleb's face. Kari drew two mommies. She told me they're married to each other. My teacher says that all that matters is that people love each other and that they're happy.
Quite right, and not only is people loving each other and being happy all that really matters, it isn't actually anyone's business how others decide to live their lives. But Sophia's mother has other ideas.
Well, people have their own ideas about what is right and wrong. But what matters is how Jehovah feels.
Or, more specifically, what matters is one religion's fundamentalist interpretation of what God thinks on a given subject.
He wants us to be happy, and he knows how we can be happiest. That's why he invented marriage the way he did.
You mean one man and one woman?
Exactly.
Yes, marriage is an invention, and Jehovah is its inventor. We know this because of a story in Genesis involving a talking snake that must be true because the same book tells us it's true. And when have stories in books ever turned out to be fabricated? Apparently, not only has God decided that one man, one woman is the only gender configuration in which marriage can work, he also insists that even gays and lesbians cannot be happy unless they use the Garden of Eden story as a blueprint for their lives. So, if Kari's mommy and mummy insist they're in a happy, loving relationship, what would they know about anything? Jehovah insists that unless they break up and each get saddled with a bloke, they're going to be miserable.
Look at Genesis 1:27. Jehovah created Adam and Eve, male and female. Then in Genesis 2:24, he said that a man will stick to his wife.
Then in Genesis 25 verse 6, Abraham had a wife and concubines. Then in Genesis 46, Jacob had 2 wives and had children by them and their handmaidens. Then in 2 Samuel 5:13, King David had multiple wives and concubines. Then in 1 Kings 11 verse 3, King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. I'm confused. Where are we going with all this?
Later, Jesus said the same thing. Jehovah's standards haven't changed.
Actually, Jesus had nothing to say at all on the subject of homosexuality. Seriously, if you don't believe me, Google it. If you read the verse that is cited by Watchtower in this video in context, namely Matthew 19 verses 4 and 5, you see that Jesus is being questioned on whether it is lawful for a man to divorce his wife on any grounds. To this, Jesus replies, "Have you not read that the one who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man will leave his father and his mother and will stick to his wife, and the two will be one flesh, so that they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore what God has yoked together, let no man put apart." Jesus was clearly offering his views on divorce, not on homosexuality. Now, obviously the Apostle Paul had plenty to say about men who lie with men. But then he was a converted Pharisee, and Pharisees were obsessed with enforcing the law codes from the Old Testament. The Old Testament did have plenty to say about those who practice homosexuality being worthy of death. But then it also prescribed the death penalty for girls who lie about their virginity, for men who collect wood on the wrong day, for rebellious sons who eat and drink too much, and for bearing false testimony. So, if you're going to get all hung up with what is written about gay people in the Old Testament, you also need to be equally fixated with people who do all those other things that are deemed worthy of death in the Mosaic Law Code.
It's kind of like going on an airplane. What would happen if someone wanted to bring something on the plane that wasn't allowed?
They couldn't go on their trip.
Right. It's the same with Jehovah. He wants us to be his friend and live in paradise forever. But we have to follow his standards to get there. At Matthew 7:13 and 14, it talks about the road leading to paradise. To get there, Jehovah says we have to leave some things behind. That means anything Jehovah doesn't approve of.
This is very clever. Rather than overtly threatening gay people with death at Armageddon if they don't change their ways, Watchtower chooses a more subtle tactic. A gay person is likened to someone trying to fly out to a paradise destination with contraband in his hand luggage. To be allowed to continue on his journey, all he needs to do is surrender the forbidden item and he can get on the plane. This leaves the impression that if the gay person doesn't want to surrender what's in his bags, in other words, change who he is, the worst case scenario is that his ticket gets cancelled and he has to wander around duty free for a while before getting a taxi back to his hotel. But in the doomsday teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses, that's not how it works. A gay person who refuses to give up the forbidden item in his luggage will be bundled away by security, along with everyone else who refuses to conform to the demands of the governing body in New York. And when Armageddon comes, all those who don't bend their knee to Watchtower and live according to the governing body's wishes will be annihilated in a hail of fireballs. This is a follow us or die scenario, not a follow us or don't fly scenario.
But I want everyone to get to paradise.
So does Jehovah.
Absolute nonsense. If Jehovah wants everyone to get to paradise, he has a strange way of showing it. According to Watchtower teachings, Armageddon will strike at any moment, and when that happens, only Jehovah's Witnesses will be spared from being massacred. That is, after all, the whole point of Jehovah's Witnesses doing their preaching work in the first place, to give people the chance to change their wicked ways and join them. If it were purely down to God deciding to save whoever has a good heart, the preaching work wouldn't be needed. Let's put all this in perspective. There are just over 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses and an estimated 7.4 billion people on the planet. That's 7,400 million versus 8 million. So, when Jehovah begins his bloodbath, even assuming a best case scenario where every single Jehovah's Witness lives, and that is by no means a given according to Watchtower, well over 7 billion people, including billions of children, will be slaughtered by a God who apparently wants them all to survive through into paradise. Go figure.
And you know what? People can change. That's why we share his message.
Yes, of course. How could I forget? Gay people can change. If you're a gay person, it's only because you chose to be gay as a lifestyle choice. It's not like you were born gay or something. All the gay people in the world are apparently only gay because being in a persecuted minority that is subjected to constant bigotry, discrimination and abuse is apparently the easiest and most enjoyable option.
So, what can you say to Kari?
Well, I could tell her about the paradise. I could tell her about the animals and the resurrection.
That's awesome! Let's practice.
Yes, let's practice imposing our indoctrinated, small-minded bigotry on others. Let's not just be content to do what we think is right, let's make sure as many people as possible do what we think is right as well. This, for me, is the most sickening aspect of the Christian evangelical fixation with gay people. For some reason, in their minds, homosexuality is not just something that involves other people. They seem to view it as something that other people must stop doing because otherwise it might spread like some kind of contagious disease. Listen, just as people are born gay, people are born straight. The notion of asking a straight person to start being gay is just as silly as that of asking a gay person to live a lie and pretend he's straight. If you are a Christian evangelical and you are somehow offended by gay and lesbian people, I have news for you. They will carry on being gay or lesbian regardless of your views. And they have no interest in inflicting their nature on you in the same way as you are apparently obsessed with inflicting yours on them. As appalled as I am at the way this awful video deliberately sets out to turn happy, carefree Jehovah's Witness kids into judgmental, narrow-minded, homophobic little pricks, I am actually more concerned about the bigger picture. Yesterday I finished watching a film on Netflix called God Loves Uganda, which just happens to touch on this very issue. I would urge everyone to watch it, whether they are atheists or believers. The film clearly shows how obsessing over what other people do with their genitals is not only juvenile and intrusive, it's also dangerous and can quickly lead into unbridled hatred and even violence. In the case of Uganda, an impoverished country in which the majority of people have limited access to a good education is being exploited by Christian evangelical radicals from the USA. These fanatics are exploiting an opportunity to not only preach their message of hate, but to get their bigotry enshrined in law. As a result of the work of these missionaries, who are themselves mostly products of child indoctrination, laws have been passed in Uganda that punish gay people with life imprisonment. The film also shows how an LGBT activist, David Kato, was brutally murdered by a mob in the wave of hatred that has engulfed the country, all inspired by the so-called Christian preaching of US evangelicals. Simply put, homophobia is a serious issue that has a real effect on people's lives. And I, for one, am deeply ashamed that Jehovah's Witnesses, the religion of my birth, are jumping on the bandwagon to the extent of putting out this vile cartoon. Again, if you're watching this video and you disagree with homosexuality, that is your choice. But sooner or later you will need to come to terms with the fact that homosexuality itself is not a choice. And gay and lesbian people have the right to live their lives peacefully without being bullied, harassed or discriminated against purely because of who they are. They are not trying to influence you to be like them, so you have no right sending your kids to try to influence them to be like you. My name is Lloyd Evans and you've been watching my John Cedars channel. Please subscribe for more videos and thank you for watching.